Chapter 9, Volume 2 of Rob Roy. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Rob Roy by Sir Walter Scott. Volume 2, Chapter 9th. An iron race the mountain cliffs maintain, foes to the gentler genius of the plain, who, while their rocky ramparts round they see, the rough abode of want and liberty, as lawless force from confidence will grow, insult the plenty of the vales below. Gray. "What made ye sae late?" said Mr. Jarvie, as I entered the dining parlour of that honest gentleman. "It is chappit wene the best fika 5 minutes by gain. Matty has been twice at the door with the dinner, and weel for you. It was a tup's head, for that canna suffer by delay. A sheep's head ower muckle boiled is rank poison, as my worthy father used to say. He liked the lug a ween weel, honest man." I made a suitable apology for my breach of punctuality, and was soon seated at table, where Mr. Jarvie presided with great glee and hospitality, compelling, however, Owen and myself to do rather more justice to the Scottish dainties with which his board was charged than was quite agreeable to our southern palates. I escaped pretty well from having those habits of society which enable one to elude this species of well-meant persecution. But it was ridiculous enough to see Owen, whose ideas of politeness were more rigorous and formal, and who was willing, in all acts of lawful compliance, to evince his respect for the friend of the firm, eating with rueful complacence mouthful after mouthful of singed wool, and pronouncing it excellent, in a tone in which disgust almost overpowered civility. When the cloth was removed, Mr. Jarvie compounded with his own hands a very small bowl of brandy punch, the first which I had ever the fortune to see. "The limes," he assured us, "were from his own little farm yonder away," indicating the West Indies with a knowing shrug of his shoulders. And he had learned the art of composing the liquor from auld Captain Coffinkey, who acquired it, he added in a whisper, "as maist folk thought, among the buccaneers. But it's excellent liquor," said he, helping us round, "and good ware as afen come frae a wicked market. And as for Captain Coffinkey, he was a decent man when I kent him, only he used to swear awfully. But he's dead, and gane to his account, and I trust he's accepted. We found the liquor exceedingly palatable, and it led to a long conversation between Owen and our host on the opening which the Union had afforded to trade between Glasgow and the British colonies in America and the West Indies, and on the facilities which Glasgow possessed of making up sortable cargoes for that market. Mr. Jarvie answered some objection which Owen made on the difficulty of sorting a cargo for America without buying from England, with vehemence and volubility. "Nay, nay, sir, we stand on our ain bottom. We pickle in our ain pockneuk. We hae our own sterling serges, Musselburgh stuffs, Aberdeen hose, Edinburgh shalloons, and the like, for our wool and our worsted goods. And we hae linens of a' kinds better and cheaper than ye hae in Lunnon itsel, and we can buy you north o' England wares as Manchester wares, Sheffield wares, and Newcastle earthenware as cheap as ye can at Liverpool. And we are making a fair spell at cottons and muslins. Nay, nay, let every herring hing by its ain head, and every sheep by its ain shank, and ye'll find, sir, us Glasgow folk no so far ahint but what we may follow. This is but a poor entertainment for you, Mr. Osbaldistone," observing that I had been for some time silent, "but ye ken cadgers maun aye be speaking about cart saddles." I apologized, alleging the painful circumstances of my own situation, and the singular adventures of the morning, as the causes of my abstraction and absence of mind. In this manner I gained what I sought, an opportunity of telling my story distinctly and without interruption. I only omitted mentioning the wound I had received, which I did not think worthy of notice. Mr. Jarvie listened with great attention and apparent interest, twinkling his little grey eyes, taking snuff, and only interrupting me by brief interjections. When I came to the account of the rencontre, at which Owen folded his hands and cast up his eyes to heaven, the very image of woeful surprise, Mr. Jarvie broke in upon the narration with, "Wrang now, clane wrang. To draw a sword on your kinsman is inhibited by the laws of God and man, and to draw a sword on the streets of a royal borough is punishable by fine and imprisonment. And the college yards are nae better privileged. They should be a place of peace and quietness, I trow. The college didna get good £600 a year out of the bishop's rents. Sorrow for the brood of bishops and the rents too, nor yet a lease of the Archbishopric of Glasgow, the sellet, that they sud let folks toolsy in their yards, or the wild callants bicker there with snowballs as they whiles do, that when Matty and I gae through, we are fain to make a bake and a bow, or run the risk of our hairns being knocked out. It will be looked to. But come away wi' your tale. What fell neist? Reader's note. The boys in Scotland used formerly to make a sort of saturnalia in a snowstorm, by pelting passengers with snowballs. But those exposed to that annoyance were excused from it on the easy penalty of a bake, curtsy, from a female, or a bow from a man. It was only the refractory who underwent the storm. End reader's note. On my mentioning the appearance of Mr. Campbell, Jarvey arose in great surprise and paced the room, exclaiming, "Robin again! Robert's mad! Clean wood and war! Rob will be hanged and disgrace a' his kindred, and that will be seen and heard tell o'. My father the deacon wrought him his first hose. Od, I am thinking Deacon Three-Ply, the rape spinner, will be twisting his last cravat. Ay, poor Robin is a fair way of being hanged. But come away, let's hear the law of it." I told the whole story as pointedly as I could, but Mr. Jarvey still found something lacking to make it clear, until I went back, though with considerable reluctance, on the whole story of Morris, and of my meeting with Campbell at the house of Justice Inglewood. Mr. Jarvey inclined a serious ear to all this, and remained silent for some time after I had finished my narrative. "Upon all these matters I am now to ask your advice, Mr. Jarvey, which I have no doubt will point out the best way to act for my father's advantage and my own honour." "You're right, young man, you're right," said the baillie. "I take the counsel of those who are older and wiser than yourself, and binna like the goddess Rehoboam, who took the advice of a wheen beardless gallants, neglecting the old counsellors who had sate at the feet of his father Solomon, and, as it was weel put by Mr. Michael John in his lecture on the chapter, were doubtless partakers of his sapience. But I maun hear naething about honour. We ken naething here but about credit. Honour is a homicide and a blood spiller, that gangs about making frays in the street, but credit is a decent honest man that sits at hame and makes the pat play." "Assuredly, Mr. Jarvey," said our friend Owen, "credit is the sum total, and if we can but save that, at whatever discount—" "You're right, Mr. Owen, you're right. You speak weel and wisely, and I trust bowls will row right, though they are a wee agee, you know. But touching Robin, I am of opinion he will befriend this young man if it is in his power. He has a good heart, poor Robin, and though I lost a matter of £200 wi' his former engagements, and haena muckle expectations ever to see back my £1,000 Scots that he promises me e'en now, yet I will never say but what Robin means fair by men." "Am I to consider him," I replied, "as an honest man?" "Humph!" replied Jarvey, with a precautionary sort of cough. "Ay, he has a kind of Highland honesty. He's honest after a sort, as they say. My father the deacon used aye to laugh when he told me how that byword came up. When Captain Costlet was cracking crows about his loyalty to King Charles, and Clerk Pettigrew, you'll ha' heard mony a tale about him, asked him after what manner he served the king when he was fighting again him at Worcester in Cromwell's army, and Captain Costlet was a ready body, and said that he served him after a sort. My honest father used to laugh well at that sport, and say the byword came up." "But do you think," I said, "that this man will be able to serve me after a sort, or should I trust myself to this place of rendezvous which he's given me?" "Frankly and fairly, it's worth trying. You see yourself there's some risk in you staying here. This bit body Morris has got a custom house place down at Greenock. That's a port on the Firth down by here, and though all the world kens him to be but a twa-legged creature, wi' a goose's head and a hen's heart, that goes about on the quay plaguing folks about permits and cockets and dockets and all that vexatious trade, yet if he lodge an information, no doubt a man in magisterial duty maun attend to it, and you might come to be clapped up within 4 walls, whilk wad be convenient to your father's affairs." "True," I observed. "Yet what service am I likely to render him by leaving Glasgow, which, it is probable, will be the principal scene of Rashleigh's machinations, and committing myself to the doubtful faith of a man of whom I know little but that he fears justice, and has doubtless good reasons for doing so, and that, for some secret and probably dangerous purpose, he is in close league and alliance with the very person who is like to be the author of our ruin?" "Ay, but you judge Rob hardly," said the baillie. "You judge him hardly, poor child. And the truth is, that ye ken nothing about our hill country, or Highlands as we ca' them. They are clean and nither set for their like o' us. There's nae bailey courts amang them, nae magistrates that dinna bear the sword in vain, like the worthy deacon that's away. And I may say it like myself and other present magistrates in this city, but it's just the laird's command, and the loon man loup. And the never another law ha' they but the length of their dirks, the broadsword's pursuer, or a plaintiff, as you Englishers ca' it, and the target is defender, the stoutest head bears longest out, and there's a Highland plea for ye. Owen groaned deeply, and I allow that the descriptions did not greatly increase my desire to trust myself in a country so lawless as he described these Scottish mountains. Now, sir, said Jarvie, we speak little o' they things, because they are familiar to ourselves, and where's the use of vilifying one's country, and bringing a discredit on one's kin, before southrons and strangers? It's an ill bird that files its ain nest. Well, sir, but as it is no impertinent curiosity of mine, but real necessity, that obliges me to make these inquiries, I hope you will not be offended at my pressing for a little farther information. I have to deal, on my father's account, with several gentlemen of these wild countries, and I must trust your good sense and experience for the requisite lights upon the subject. This little morsel of flattery was not thrown out in vain. Experience, said the Bailey. I ha' had experience, nae doubt, and I hae made some calculations. Ay, and to speak quietly among ourselves, I ha' made some perquisitions through Andrew Wylie, my old clerk. He's with McVitie & Co. now, but he whiles drinks a gill on the Saturday afternoons wi' his old master. And since ye say ye are willing to be guided by the Glasgow weaver body's advice, I am no the man that will refuse it to the son of my old correspondent, and my father the deacon was nane sick afore me. I have whiles thought of letting my lights burn before the Duke of Argyle or his brother Lord Ely, for wherefore should they be hidden under a bushel? But the like o' they great man wadna mind the like o' me, a poor Webster body. They think more o' wha says a thing, than o' what the thing is that's said. The mair's the pity, Not that I would speak ony ill of this Lammermoor. Curse not the rich in your red chamber, saith the son of Sirach. For a bird of the air shall carry the clatter, and pint stoups hae lang lugs. I interrupted these prolegomena, in which Mr. Jarvie was apt to be somewhat diffuse, by praying him to rely upon Mr. Owen and myself as perfectly secret and safe confidants. It's no for that, he replied, for I fear nae man. What for suld I? I spake no treason. Only they Highlandmen hae lang grips, and I whiles gang a wee bit up the glens to see some auld kinsfolks, and I wadna willingly be in bad blood wi' any o' their clans. Howsomever, to proceed. Ye maun understand I found my remarks on figures, whilk, as Mr. Owen here weel kens, is the only true demonstrable root of human knowledge. Owen readily assented to a proposition so much in his own way, and our orator proceeded. These Highlands of ours, as we ca' them, gentlemen, are but a wild kind of world by themselves, full of heights and howes, woods, caverns, lochs, rivers, and mountains, that it would tire the very devil's wings to flee to the top of them. And in this country, and in the Isles, whilk are a little better, or to speak the truth rather waur than the mainland, there are about 230 parrakeens, including the Orkneys, where, whether they speak Gaelic or no, I wotna, but they are an uncivilized people. Now, sirs, I shall hold ilk parrakeen at the moderate estimate of 800 examinable persons, deducting children under 9 years of age, and then adding 1/5 to stand for bairns of 9 years old and under. The whole population will reach the sum of, let us add 1/5 to 800 to be the multiplier, and 230 being the multiplicand. The product, said Mr. Owen, who entered delightedly into these statistics of Mr. Jarvie, will be 230,000. Right, sir, perfectly right, and the military array of this Highland country, where all the men folk between 18 and 56 brought out that could bear arms, couldna come weel sort of 57,500 men. Now, sir, it's a sad and awful truth, that there is neither work, nor the very fashion nor appearance of work, for the tae half of the pure creatures. That is to say, that the agriculture, the pasturage, the fisheries, and every species of honest industry about the country cannot employ the one moiety of the population, let them work as lazily as they like, and if they do work as if a plough or a spade burnt their fingers. Well, sir, this moiety of unemployed bodies, amounting to 115,000 souls, said Owen, being the half of the above product. Ye hae it, Mr. Owen, ye hae it. whereof there may be 28,700 able-bodied gillies fit to bear arms, and that do bear arms, and will touch a look at nae honest means of livelihood, even if they could get it, which, lack a day, they cannot." "But is it possible," said I, "Mr. Jarvie, that this can be a just picture of so large a portion of the Isle of Britain?" "Sir, I'll make it as plain as Peter Paisley's pike-staff. I will allow that ilk parochine, on average, employs 50 ploughs, which is a great proportion in sic miserable soil as they creatures hae to labour, and that there may be pasture enough for play horses and ousel, and 40 or 50 cows now to take care of the ploughs and cattle. We's allow 75 families of 6 lives in ilk family, and we's add 50 mair to make even numbers, and ye have 500 souls, the tae half of the population, employed and maintained in a sort of fashion, with some chance of sour milk and crowdy. But I would be glad to ken what the other 500 are to do." "In the name of God," said I, "what do they do, Mr. Jarvie? It makes me shudder to think of their situation." "Sir," replied the baillie, "you would maybe shudder mair if you were living near hand them; for, admitting that the tae half of them may make some little thing for themselves honestly, in the Lowlands by shearing and harst, droving, hay-making, and the like, ye hae still mony hundreds and thousands of lang-legged Highland gillies that will neither work nor want, and maun gang thigging and sorning about on their acquaintance, or live by doing the laird's bidding, be to right or be to wrang." Thigging and sorning was a kind of genteel begging, or rather something between begging and robbing, by which the needy in Scotland used to extort cattle, or the means of subsistence, from those who had any to give. And mair especially, mony hundreds of them come down to the borders of the low country, where there's gear to grip, and live by stealing, riving, lifting cows, and like depredations, a thing deplorable on any Christian country, the mair especially that they take pride in it, and reckon driving a spray, whilk is in plain Scotch, stealing a herd of nauta, a gallant, manly action, and mair befitting of pretty men, as sic rivers will call themselves, than to win a day's wage by any honest thrift. The word pretty is or was used in Scotch in the sense of the German prachtig, and meant a gallant, alert fellow, prompt and ready at his weapons. And the lairds are as bad as the loons, for if they dinna bid them gae rive and harry, the dial a bit they forbid them, and they shelter them, or let them shelter themselves in their woods and mountains and strongholds, whenever the thing's done. And every one of them will maintain as mony his own name, or his clan, as we say, as he can rap and rend means for, or whilk's the same thing, as mony as can in ony fashion, fair or foul, maintain themselves. And there they are wi' gun and pistol, dirk and darlach, ready to disturb the peace of the country whenever the laird likes, and that's the grievance of the Highlands, whilk are, and hae been for this 1,000 years by past, a bike of the maist lawless, unchristian limmers that ever disturbed a douce, quiet, God-fearing neighbourhood like this of ours in the west here." "And this kinsman of yours, and friend of mine, is he one of those great proprietors who maintain the household troops you speak of?" I inquired. "Nay, nay," said Bailie Jarvie, "he's nany a great grandees of chiefs, as they ca' them neither, though he is weel born and lineally descended frae auld Glenstrae. I ken his lineage. Indeed, he is a near kinsman, and, as I said, of good gentle Highland blood, though you may think well that I care little about that nonsense. It's all moonshine and water, waste threads and thrums, as we say. But I could show you letters frae his father that was a third off Glenstrae to my father Deacon Jarvie, peace be wi' his memory, beginning, 'Dear Deacon,' and ending, 'Your loving kinsman to command.' They are most about borrowed siller, say the good deacon, that's dead and gane, keepit them as documents and evidence. He was a careful man." "But if he is not," I resumed, "one of their chiefs or patriarchal leaders, whom I have heard my father talk of, this kinsman of yours has at least much to say in the Highlands, I presume?" "Ye may say that. Nae name better kenned between the Lennox and Breadalbane. Robin was once a well-doing, painstaking drover, as you wad see among 10,000. It was a pleasure to see him in his belted plaid and brogues, wi' his target at his back and claymore and dirk at his belt, following 100 Highland stots, and a dozen of the gillies, as rough and ragged as the beasts they drave. And he was baith civil and just in his dealings, and if he thought his chapman had made a hard bargain, he would gie him a lucky penny to the mends. I ha' kenned him gie back 5 shillings out of the pound sterling." 25 per cent, said Owen, "a heavy discount." "He would gie it though, sir, as I tell ye, mair especially if he thought the buyer was a puir man, and couldna stand by a loss. But the times came hard, and Rob was venturesome. It wasna my fault, he cannot wyte me. I aye told him o't, and the creditors, mair especially some grit neighbours o' his, gripped to his living and land, and they say his wife was turned out of the house to the hillside, and sair misguided to the boot. Shameful, shameful! I am a peaceful man and a magistrate, but if ony one had guided sae muckle as my servant Queen Maddie, as it's like they guided Rob's wife, I think it suld ha' set the shabble (cutlass) that my father the deacon had at Bothwell Brig a walking again. Well, Rob came home and found desolation, God pity us, where he left plenty. He looked east, west, south, north, and saw neither hog nor hope, neither bield nor shelter. Sae he e'en pulled the bonnet o'er his brow, belted the broadsword to his side, took to the braes side, and became a broken man. Note, an outlaw. The voice of the good citizen was broken by his contending feelings. He obviously, while he professed to contemn the pedigree of his Highland kinsman, attached a secret feeling of consequence to the connection, and he spoke of his friend in his prosperity with an overflow of affection, which deepened his sympathy for his misfortunes, and his regret for their consequences. Thus tempted and urged by despair, said I, seeing Mr. Jarvie did not proceed in his narrative, I suppose your kinsman became one of those depredators you have described to us. No sae bad as that, said the Glaswegian. No a'together and outright so bad as that. But he became a levier of blackmail wider and farther than ever it was raised in our day. A' through the Lennox and Menteith, and up to the gates of Stirling Castle. Blackmail? I do not understand the phrase, I remarked. Oh, you see, Rob soon gathered an unco band of blue bonnets at his back, for he comes o' a rough name when he's kent by his ain, and a name that's held its ain for mony a long year, baith again king and parliament, and kirk too, for aught I ken, an eld and honourable name, for as sair as it had been worried and hadden down and oppressed. My mother was a MacGregor, I carena wha kens it, and Robert had soon a gallant band, and as it grieved him, he said, to see sic heirship and waste and depredation to the south of the Highland line, why, if ony heritor or farmer would pay him £4 Scot out of each £100 of value rent, whilk was doubtless a moderate consideration, Rob engaged to keep them scatheless, let them send to him if they lost sae muckle as a single cloot by thieving, and Rob engaged to get them again, or pay the value, and he aye keepit his word. I canna deny but he keepit his word. All men allow Rob keeps his word. That is a very singular contract of assurance, said Mr. Owen. It's clane again our statute law, that must be owned, said Jarvie. Clane again law. The levying and the paying blackmail are both punishable. But if the law canna protect my barn and byre, what for should I no engage wi' a Highland gentleman that can? Answer me that. But, said I, Mr. Jarvie, is this contract of blackmail, as you call it, completely voluntary on the part of the landlord or farmer who pays the insurance? Or what usually happens, in case any one refuses payment of this tribute? Aha, lad, said the baby, laughing and putting his finger to his nose, ye think ye ha' me there. Troth, I would advise ony friend of mine to agree with Rob, for watch as they like and do what they like, they are sair apt to be harried when the lang nights come on. Note, plundered. Some of the Graham and Cahoon gentry stood out, but what then? They lost their hale stock the first winter. Sae maist folk now think it best to come into Rob's terms. He's aisy wi' a body that will be easy wi' him, but if you throw him, you'd better throw the deevil. And by his exploits in these vocations, I continued, I suppose he has rendered himself amenable to the laws of the country. Amenable? You may say that. His Craig would ken the way to his herdies if they could get hold of Rob. But he has good friends among the great folk, and I could tell you o' a great family that keeps him up as far as they decently can, to be all them in the side of another. And then he's sic an old foreign long-headed chield as ever took up the trade of cattering in our time. Mony a daft rake he has played, mair than wad fill a book, and a queer one it would be, as good as Robin Hood or William Wallace. Full of venturesome deeds and escapes, sic as folk tell ower at a winter ingle in the daft days. It's a queer thing o' me, gentlemen, that I'm a man of peace mysel, and a peaceful man's son. For the deacon my father quarrelled with none out of the town council. It's a queer thing, I say, but I think the Highland blood o' me warms at the daft tales, and whiles I like better to hear them than a word of profit, good forgive me. But they are vanities, sinful vanities, and moreover again the statute law, again the statute and gospel law. I now followed up my investigation by inquiring what means of influence this Mr. Robert Campbell could possibly possess over my affairs or those of my father. "Why, you are to understand," said Mr. Jarvie in a very subdued tone. "I speak among friends, and under the rose. You are to understand that the Highlands hae been keepit quiet since the year '89, that was Killiecrankie year. But how hae they been keepit quiet, think ye? By siller, Mr. Owen, by siller, Mr. Osbaldistone. King William caused Breadalbane distribute 20,000 oud punds sterling among them, and it said the auld Highlander 'll keep it a long lugget in his ain sporin. And then Queen Anne that's dead gave the chiefs bits of pensions, sae they had wherewith to support their gillies and caterans at work nae work, as I said afore. And they lay by quiet enough, saying some spraygery in the Lowlands, whilk is their use and want, and some cutting of thrapples among themselves, that nae civilised body kens or cares onything anent. Well, but there's a new word come up with this King George. I say God bless him for when. There's neither like to be siller nor pensions gowan among them. They haena the means of maintaining the clans that eat them up, as ye may guess frae what I said before. The credit's gain in the Lowlands, and a man that can whistle ye up 1,000 or 1,500 Lincoln lads to do his will, wad hardly get £50 on his band at the Cross of Glasgow. This canna stand lang. There will be an outbreak for the Stuarts. There will be an outbreak. They will come down to the low country like a flood, as they did in the Waverley wars of Montrose. And that will be seen and heard tell o' ere a 12-month gangs round. Yet still, I said, I do not see how this concerns Mr. Campbell, much less my father's affairs. Rob can levy 500 men, sir, and therefore war suld concern him as muckle as maist folk, replied the Bailie, for it is a faculty that is far less profitable in time of peace. Then, to tell ye the truth, I doubt he has been the prime agent between some of our Highland chiefs and the gentlemen to the north of England. We all heard of the public money that was ta'en for the child Morris somewhere about the fit of Cheviot by Rob and one of the old Spaldistone lads. And to tell ye the truth, word gaed that it was you yourself, Mr. Francis. And sorry it was that your father's son should have ta'en to sick practices. Nay, ye needna say a word about it. I see well I was mista'en. But I would believe onything o' a stage player, whilk I concluded you to be. But now, I doubt na, it has been Rashleigh himself, or some other o' your cousins. They are all tarred with the same stick, rank Jacobites and Papists, and wad thing the government siller and government papers lawful prize. And the creature Morris is sic a cowardly caitiff, that to this hour he daurna say that it was Rob took the portmanteau off him. And troth he's right, for your custom house and excise cattle are ill like it on all sides, and Rob might get a backhanded lick at him before the board, as they ca' it, could help him. I have long suspected this, Mr. Jarvie, said I, and perfectly agree with you. But as to my father's affairs, suspected it? It's certain. I ken them that saw some of the papers that were ta'en off Morris. It's needless to say where. But to your father's affairs, ye maun think that in they 20 years bygane, some of the Highland lairds and chiefs hae come to some sma' sense of their ain interest. Your father and others hae bought the woods of Glen Disseries, Glen Kissoch, Tobernae Kippoch, and mony mair besides, and your father's house has granted large bills in payment. And as the credit o' Osbaldistone in Tresham was good, for I'll say before Mr. Owen's face, as I would behind his back, that bating misfortunes of the Lord's sending, nae men could be mair honourable in business. The Highland gentlemen, holders of thae bills, ha' found credit in Glasgow and Edinburgh. I might a'most say in Glasgow wholly, for it's little the pride for Edinburgh folk do in real business, for all or the greater part of the contents of thae bills. So that, aha, d'ye see me now? I confessed I could not quite follow his drift. Why, said he, if these bills are not paid, the Glasgow merchant comes on the Highland lairds, who hae deil a boddle o' siller, and will like ill to spew up what is item all spent. They will turn desperate. 500 will rise that might ha' sit in a helm. The deil will gae our Jock Webster. And the stopping of your father's house will hasten the outbreak that's been sae long biding us. You think, then, said I, surprised at this singular view of the case, that Rashleigh Osbaldistone has done this injury to my father merely to accelerate a rising in the Highlands, by distressing the gentleman to whom these bills were originally granted? Doubtless. It has been one main reason, Mr. Osbaldistone. I doubt na but what the ready money he carried off wi' him might be another. But that makes comparatively but a sma' part of your father's loss, though it might make the maist part of Rashleigh's direct gain. The assets he carried off are of nae mair use to him than if he were to light his pipe with them. He tried if McVittie and Co. would gie him siller on them. That I ken by Andrew Wylie. But they were our auld cats to draw that stray afore them. They keep it off, and gie fair words. Rashleigh Osbaldistone is better kenned than trusted in Glasgow, for he was here about some Jacobitical papistical troking in 1707, and left debt ahint him. Nay, nay, he canna pit off the paper here. Folk will misdoubt him how he come by it. Na, he'll hae the stuff safe at some of their halls in the Highlands, and I daresay my cousin Rob could get at it, gin he liked. But would he be disposed to serve us in this pinch, Mr. Jarvie? Said I. You have described him as an agent of the Jacobite party, and deeply connected in their intrigues. Will he be disposed for my sake, or if you please for the sake of justice, to make an act of restitution, which, supposing it in his power, would, according to your view of the case, materially interfere with their plans? I canna precisely speak to that. The grandees among them are doubtful of Rob, and he's doubtful of them. And he's been weel friended with the Argyle family, wha stand for the present model of government. If he was freed o' his hornings and captions, he would rather be on Argyle's side than he would be on Breadalbane's, for there's auld ill will between the Breadalbane family and his kin and name. The truth is, that Rob is for his ain hand, as Henry Wynd fought. He'll take the side that suits him best. If the deil was laird, Rob would be for being tenant, and ye canna blame him, puir fellow, considering his circumstances. Reader's note. 2 great clans fought out a quarrel with 30 men of a side, in presence of the king, on the north inch of Perth, on or about the year 1392. A man was a-missing on one side, whose room was filled by a little bandy-legged citizen of Perth. This substitute, Henry Wynd, or as the Highlanders called him, Gal Chrome, that is, the bandy-legged smith, fought well and contributed greatly to the fate of the battle, without knowing which side he fought on. So, to fight for your own hand like Henry Wynd, passed into a proverb. This incident forms a conspicuous part of the subsequent novel, The Fair Maid of Perth. End reader's note. But there's aye things said again ye. Rob has a grey mare in his stable at hame. A grey mare, said I. What is that to the purpose? The wife, man, the wife. An awful wife she is. She downa bide the sight of a kindly Scot, if he come frae the Lowlands, far less of an Englisher, and she'll be keen for a' that can set up King James and ding down King George. It is very singular, I replied, that the mercantile transactions of London citizens should become involved with revolutions and rebellions. Not at all, man, not at all, returned Mr. Jarvie. That's all your silly prejudications. I read whiles in the lang dark nights, and I hae read in Baker's Chronicle that the merchants o' London could gar the Bank o' Genoa break their promise to advance a mighty sum to the King of Spain, whereby the sailings of the great Spanish Armada was put off for a whole year. What do you think of that, sir? Reader's note. The Chronicle of the Kings of England by Sir Richard Baker, with continuations, passed through several editions between 1641 and 1733. Whether any of them contain the passage alluded to is doubtful. End of reader's note. That the merchants did their country golden service, which ought to be honourably remembered in our histories. I think so too. They would do weel, and deserve weel baith of the state and o' humanity. That would save 3 or 4 honest Highland gentlemen for looping heads o'er heels into destruction, wi' all their poor sackless followers, just because they canna pay back the siller they had reason to count upon as their ain, and save your father's credit, and my own good siller that Osbaldistone and Tresham alls me into the bargain. Note, sackless, that is, innocent. I say, if Wayne could manage all this, I think it should be done and said unto him, even if he were a poor ca' the shuttle body, as unto one whom the king delighteth to honour. I cannot pretend to estimate the extent of public gratitude, I replied, but our own thankfulness, Mr. Jarvie, would be commensurate with the extent of the obligation, which, added Mr. Owen, we would endeavour to balance with a per contra the instant our Mr. Osbaldistone returns from Holland. I doubt na. He is a very worthy gentleman, and responsible, and with some of my lights might do muckle business in Scotland. Well, sir, if these assets could be redeemed out of the hands of the Philistines, they are good paper. They are the right stuff when they are in the right hands, and that's yours, Mr. Owen. And I's find you 3 men in Glasgow, for as little as ye may think o' us, Mr. Owen. That's Sandy Steenson in the tradesland, and John Peary in Candleriggs, and another that shall be nameless at this present, shall advance what sums are sufficient to secure the credit of your house, and seek nae better security. Owen's eyes sparkled at this prospect of extrication, but his countenance instantly fell on recollecting how improbable it was that the recovery of the assets, as he technically called them, should be successfully achieved. "Dinna despair, sir, dinna despair," said Mr. Jarvie. "I hae ta'en sae muckle concern wi' your affairs already, that it maun e'en be overshown our boots wi' me now. I am just like my father the deacon, praise be wi' him. I canna meddle wi' a friend's business, but I aye end wi' making it my ain. Sae I'll e'en pit on my boots in the morn, and be jogging o'er Drimmen Muir wi' Mr. Frank here; and if I canna make Rob hear reason, and his wife too, I dinna ken wha can. I ha' been a kind friend to them afore now, to say nothing o' o'erlooking him last night, when naming his name would have cost him his life. I'll be hearing of this in the council, maybe, fra Bailie Graham and McVitty, and some o' them. They ha' cussed up my kindred to Rob, to me already. Set up their nash gabs, I told them I would vindicate nae man's faults, but set apart what he had done again the law of the country, and the heirship of the Lennox, and the misfortune of some folks losing life by him. He was an honester man than stood on ony of their shanks. And what for sud I mind their clavers? If Rob is an outlaw, to himsel be it said. There is nae laws now about reset of intercommune persons, as there was in the ill times of the last Stuarts. I trow I ha' a Scotch tongue in my head. If they spake, I's answer." It was with great pleasure that I saw the Bailie gradually surmount the barriers of caution, under the united influence of public spirit and good-natured interest in our affairs, together with his natural wish to avoid loss and acquire gain, and not a little harmless vanity. Through the combined operation of these motives, he at length arrived at the doughty resolution of taking the field in person, to aid in the recovery of my father's property. His whole information led me to believe that if the papers were in possession of this Highland adventurer, it might be possible to induce him to surrender what he could not keep with any prospect of personal advantage, and I was conscious that the presence of his kinsman was likely to have a considerable weight with him. I therefore cheerfully acquiesced in Mr. Jarvie's proposal that we should set out early next morning. That honest gentleman was indeed as vivacious and alert in preparing to carry his purpose into execution as he had been slow and cautious in forming it. He roared to Matty to "'are his trot cosy, have his jack boots graced and set before the kitchen fire all night, and to see that his beast be corned, and a' his riding gear in order." Having agreed to meet him at 5 o'clock next morning, and having settled that Owen, whose presence could be of no use to us upon this expedition, should await our return at Glasgow, we took a kind farewell of this unexpectedly zealous friend. I installed Owen in an apartment in my lodgings, contiguous to my own, and giving orders to Andrew Fairservice to attend me next morning at the hour appointed, I retired to rest with better hopes than it had lately been my fortune to entertain. End of Book 2, Chapter 9.